I am, as always, Matt Gritzmacher, joined by John McWhinney. We're from ubbullrun.com. It's Sunday night. It's 10 o'clock. I should remember to actually publish the post. We are talking, as we always do, UB Olympic sports after a weekend. John, not the fullest weekend. I sat down last night to write some recaps and thought I had a bunch of softball games to catch up on, and they didn't actually compete this weekend. I don't think there was anything today on Sunday, which certainly lightened our load. It wasn't a lot. We've got some to look forward to. At the end of the show, we'll close out previewing, to the extent that we feel like it, previewing the MAC championships in both women's swimming and diving and track and field, which will both happen this coming week before our next show. I will preview those much more in depth in pieces on the site over the course of the week. But John, we had a wrestling match. We'll get to that. That's your wheelhouse. We had 3 tennis matches. I'll get to those. We had a limited number of track and field competitors across 2 places before the championships. And we had baseball kicking off their season. And so, John, as we do whenever a team kicks off their season, baseball is actually the second to last. Only rowing is left to actually start their season. We're really getting to the end of the year here, even if it doesn't feel like it in February. We'll start with baseball. Good news, bad news. Can't really think of any good news.
It can't get
really
much
where we're at.
worse.
Yeah.
And it is, and the team is still relatively young.
Yeah.
It's. I think we knew kind of coming in that it was going to be another building year.
Sure.
They had 3 games over the weekend: Air Force, Marist, and Davidson. Actually, that wasn't even the order they played. It was Air Force, Davidson, then Marist. They were outscored 26-3 and didn't score a run until, I believe it was today's game.
They didn't score a run till the 4th inning, so it took them 22 innings to score a run. And 2 of their 3 runs came in the 8th inning today.
Yeah, so and collectively over those 3 games, they were 0 for 10 from the leadoff spot.
Yeah.
So offensively, there's not a whole lot is going. One thing I did notice looking through the box scores was that the lineups were switched around a bit from game to game. So I think that might be kind of coach's way to kind of get some feelers as to how guys are at different spots and things like that. But you'd think as the season goes along that a more concrete lineup is going to have to be set.
Yeah, that doesn't concern me as much as it might in other sports. I don't know if you were a baseball kid growing up, John. We've never really talked about it.
I watched baseball. I never really played it. My dad was really big into baseball, but I never really got into playing it.
Yeah, poking through the lineups, I don't see terribly big differences. What I do see is a lot of returning hitters that had inconsistent weekends for sure. We lost Nick Sine to the MLB draft from last year. But I think the pitching staff had bigger losses from last year. And even so, the returning hitters, they're names that we know. They're names that we saw at times, plenty of times last year. But are any of them really somebody who thinking situation? And now, I don't know. I mean, Ben Hafner, Bobby Shepard, Vinny Milaro, Chris Quitzer, Ben Vay, Micah Brunzo, Brian Dudek, Eddie Edwards. Those are all names that we know from last year. And then Connor Regan is a freshman catcher who's come in and was a relatively well-regarded recruit out of Ohio. Those are all names we know. These are names that we've seen. So they are a young team. They rely a lot on JUCO guys from community colleges around New York State. I think part of that is how many scholarships they have to fund the program. This weekend, they really didn't manage much at all on the offensive side. We'll see what happens. Tim, people who read our blog regularly know that Tim is our baseball guy. He's been covering it since the blogs existed, and he needed a spring sport. So he can speak a little bit more. Maybe we'll get him on at points this spring. He says that, there isn't really at even any one area in the lineup that he sees right now that can produce base runners every time through and try and play small ball. And I agree with that. I think that's valid. I think Abrunzo, can hit for some power when he's in the lineup. Quitzer can hit. Milaro can hit. There's guys there that can hit, but like Sine got on base and Sine stole bases, and he got to second base 40% of the time that he came up. Got to second base within like 4 pitches, and he's gone. And I think in general, pitching staff wise, names we recognize, names that I think if we had rolled them out last year as our weekend rotation, we'd have been very concerned. Alec Tui, relieved by Logan Harasta. Then in the second game, Brandon Muma, who I think is new, relieved by Mike Kalin, who last year was a lights-out reliever. And then the third game was Charlie Sobraski, who's a local guy. He's a sophomore this year. Again, names that we know, not names that have been terribly productive before, and they are a young group still. But I think nobody's too surprised that this won't be. Last year's team was the first in a while to be below 20 wins, and 20 wins was a big threshold for this program when they cracked it a few years in a row. I don't think anyone was predicting 20 wins again this year, and this weekend, taking 22 innings to score a run, and scoring only 3 over 27 innings. I don't think anyone's expecting that this year. That's less of an offensive output than we were hoping for, but also not super, super surprising. We'll see what storylines develop, John. I don't know what more we might want to say about baseball right now. I think it's pretty apparent that they did not get a recruiting boom from those 20 win, those very strong seasons, when they had a couple MAC Player of the Years in a row. They had, some solid pitching and hitting. They've got, at one point, they had 6 or 7 guys in the minors just from a 3 or 4 year stretch. And that doesn't seem to have helped build the program at all. Doesn't help that they're working with fewer scholarships than the rest of the conference. Doesn't help that they're playing on essentially a rec league field across the street from campus somewhere. I don't know. We'll see. I hesitate to say too much more until we see more from this season. But while there's names that we recognize, they're not necessarily anyone that I feel like is going to produce results super, super consistently right now.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you have anything more.
I don't have anything else for baseball.
Then talk wrestling. Take it away.
Okay. They had their regular season finale against Northern Iowa. Coming in, Northern Iowa was only 3-10 in duels, which is very deceiving. It's a very deceiving record. They were still nationally ranked, if you can believe that. They've been hit big by the injury bug throughout most of the year. Dylan Peters, a guy who's been an All-American. He's ranked number 5 in the nation at 125. He's been in and out of the lineup all year. Cooper Moore at 165. Bryce Steiert at 157. Even Josh Alper at 133. So it's like 4 ranked guys they've had in and out of the lineup. So they've been really inconsistent there. I would describe this match as kind of meh.
Yeah, that's the vibe I got too.
It just started out so poorly. I mean, Kyle Aikens got caught in a really bad spot against a guy who really had no business beating him. The guy was Dylan Peters' backup. He was like 9-8 or 8-9 on the season. Had lost every MAC duel he had wrestled so far, and then he comes out and pins Kyle Aikens in kind of a fluky fashion, which myself and a few of the other fans had started to give it to the ref because when Aikens' shoulders went over, normally it's a 1-2 count before the ref calls it as a pin. It was basically instantaneous. which is just too fast for a pin for my liking. Anyway, so that happened. Then Brian Lantry gets pinned at 133. Brandon Lappy gives Tyler Willers damn near all he can handle. He got a takedown late, but it just wasn't enough. At the start of the third period, Lappy gave up 4 back points, and he was in pretty deep trouble. Then at the end, he got a takedown. He had a cradle lock. He rolled Willers over to his back, but the buzzer rang. If he had 2 seconds more on the clock, he would have won the match. So that was really frustrating. Colt Cotton kind of started slow, but then he did his thing, and he won 9-6, which was nice to see. Give him some momentum going into the MAC championships. Then at 57-65, Alex Smythe and Rock Nadoke got beat pretty handily by both their guys. And during Alex Smythe's match, I overheard Coach Stutzman say something to him during a kind of a break in the action. And he walked over the edge of the mat and he said, all I want for you is to wrestle hard and fight. And I thought that was kind of a poignant quote that it just at times it just didn't seem like that, that was there coming from each guy. Mm-hmm. And you could definitely see the frustration in Coach Stutzman as the afternoon went on. Or evening, because it started at 7. Then Muhammad McBride won 5-3. It was a really, really nice match. Really nice way for him to go out to end his career at Alumni with a win. Joe Areola managed to tie his match on the final seconds, but then lost in overtime. James Benjamin gutted out a really nice 2-0 win. He's a guy that, especially coming off of last weekend when he went 2-0, pinning Northern Illinois' Sean Scott. He's a guy that's definitely on the rise.
We were hyping him up preseason, and I gotta say his reversal and back points against Maryland was one of my favorite moments yet as a UB wrestling fan. And you were hyping him up preseason, so that's good. I approve.
Yeah, it's good. It's good to be right. He got an escape second period. Then third period, his man chose down. He rode him out for the entire 2 minutes, which is no easy task, but he did it. And then the 285-pound match, which I billed as the main quote-unquote main event. Blaze Cable took on Jake Gunning. Cable is the top-ranked heavyweight in the MAC. Currently 18 or 15, depending on where you look. And I said before, and I'm still saying after, that was a preview of the MAC title match in 2 weeks. That these two are going to come head-to-head again. Assuming, of course, Gunning isn't on Cable's side of the bracket. They don't meet like the semifinals or something. But barring anything kooky, I think that's what'll happen. Cable, he got a few takedowns on Gunning early, but then I think once Gunning kind of calmed down and started getting his thing going, that he did a little bit better as the match went on. He got a takedown at the end, and he got in on a few nice shots. He just wasn't able to finish until the end of the match, until it was kind of out of hand. But I also think that he wasn't showing Cable enough, because I think he was cognizant of the fact that he was probably going to see him again, and he wanted to keep a few tricks up his sleeve for the next time.
That makes sense.
So overall, kind of meh match, but again, the team finished 10-win season, winning season, 2 MAC wins. Those are things we haven't seen around these parts in quite a while. Since before I started going to UB. And in a little bit more positive news, we found out today Nate Rose is heading back to the Pan Am Championships, which he competed there last year when they were held in Santiago, Chile. And this year they're going to be held in Frisco, Texas, which is just outside of Dallas. Last year, before even having any collegiate experience or anything, Rose finished 5th at 97 kilograms. He's a freestyle. He's competing in freestyle there, which is mostly throws and upper body things, things of that nature. In his final match, if he had won his final match, he would have gotten a bronze medal and finished top 3. So things are looking up for him, especially after getting some NCAA experience under his belt, more time in the weight room, things like that. I think he's going to improve. I think he has a pretty good shot at actually medaling this year. Really, the name to watch in his bracket is Dustin Kilgore, who did wrestle for Kent State and was an NCAA national champion, and actually made it to the finals 2 years in a row. He was the runner-up and then the champion at 197. But I think Rose still has a pretty good shot at placing top 3. Excuse me. The way the tournaments work is kind of kooky, where 2 people actually get bronze medals. Which it sounds kind of silly to say that, but that's the way it works. Last year he finished fifth out of 14 guys, which for a guy who had basically not a lot of experience outside of high school wrestling and things like that. Excuse me. I think that was really, really impressive, and he's definitely got a lot more experience being able to wrestle collegiately with UB and things like that. I think he'll be in prime position to medal. Now, if he medals, I'm not sure if he gets invited to the Pan Am Olympic qualifiers. If he does get invited to the Olympic qualifiers, basically what happens is there's another tournament. I believe it's the week after the Pan Am Championships, and if he makes the finals there, he's going to Rio this summer. I'm unsure as to how the invitations to the Olympic qualifier are handed out, or how that's determined. I can't really find too much concrete information on it. But I'm assuming if he medals or places top 2 at the Pan Am Championships, I'm assuming it's a medal there. He'll move on to the Olympic qualifiers, and if he places top 2 there, then he's going to Rio this summer.
That works. So yeah, Nate Rose, we've kind of been quiet on him this season. He hasn't been able to break into the starting lineup. Hasn't been got to use that red shirt. Why not? He's a mover and a shaker. I pretty much agree with you on the Northern Iowa match. It's a meh. Even if Akins doesn't get pinned and you get that 9-point swing, still not great. It's fine. I noticed that there were no quotes from Stutzman in the recap from UB, but he did tweet today from the UB what you can fit in a tweet recap of the year, and it's encouraging in kind of his all up style way. Year 3 progress: 10 dual meet wins, 2 MAC wins, 2 freshmen ranked throughout the year, which isn't how I would use the word throughout. and first winning season in 6 years. Next up, Mac Champ. So it's a big step up for wrestling from last year. Good things are on the horizon. Nate Rose is the next good thing. Next Sunday, we will preview the Mac. Next Sunday is going to be a big show, John.
That will be,
because we're gonna have 2 MAC championships to recap, 2 to preview, plus softball, plus tennis, plus baseball. I'm missing something. No, that actually might be everything. Even so, going to be a big show next week.
Mm-hmm. Before we move on, I just wanted to mention that last year, Northern Iowa beat UB 37-0.
So what was it this year? 31-9 this year today?
29-9.
Okay.
And actually, the kid that pinned Kyle Akins pinned Sean Peacock last year. So there's that. So yeah, moving on. All
right, I will step away from my track and field preparing to talk tennis. Both tennis teams were in action this weekend. This will be pretty quick. Men's tennis back after a week off. Their last competition was a kind of disappointing weekend against NJIT, and Princeton. Lost to Princeton wasn't terribly surprising. Lost to NJIT. Not necessarily super surprising, but I really thought they had a chance at a win there. This weekend they bounced back. They just had a single home match against Cleveland State. Didn't really face any issues there. Kind of the storyline for me this season with men's tennis is their experience. They've got 4 or 5 seniors on a 7 or 8 guy deep team. Last year they had some real top of the MAC firepower at first and second singles, and that really didn't pay off in the spring season. They really won in spite of that with wins at lower in the singles lineup. This year, they're winning more at the top of the lineup. Against Cleveland State, they took the doubles point. They actually swept the doubles matches, but Amar Hromich and Pablo Alvarez won the first one pretty quickly, and then the other 2 went to tiebreakers, and all 3 did go in UB's favor, but winning that first set quickly really helps when your other guys go into tiebreakers. It just opens the margin for error a little bit more. And in singles, like I said, really getting production from their seniors at the top of the lineup. One at 1, 2, and 3 singles, all in straight sets. One at 6 singles in straight sets. Only lost at 5, where Tony Miller was subbing in his first action this spring. Noah Haidu-Anderson didn't play. Miller also subbed in the doubles lineup for Haidu-Anderson. He did win with Akil Mehta there. Miller dropped 1 at 5, and Ethan Natolo dropped another 3-setter, I should say, at 4 singles, but that was after UB had already wrapped the match up. So men's tennis back on the right foot against Cleveland State. They next weekend, I should have had this loaded. I feel like I say that every week. I can only have so many tabs without freaking my computer out. They have Youngstown State next weekend, and they have a couple weeks off before MAC play, which I like that schedule better than the way they did things last year. So Youngstown State next weekend, we'll see what comes of that. The women came into this weekend undefeated. We kind of knew that road matches at West Virginia and Pitt were going to be definitely the toughest competition seen so far. The Bulls have seen West Virginia in the fall the last couple of years, and this year the Mountaineers and UB were the top 2 teams at West Virginia's own Invitational in the fall. So I was expecting a narrow match there. The Bulls lost 4-3. They lost 2-1 in the double sets, which is not bad. Lost 7-5 at first doubles. That's a close match that could have swung. Unlike the men, like the men, they've also had success from their top of the lineup, 1, 2, and 3 singles this year. Unlike the men, part of the reason they lost against West Virginia was they dropped 2, 3, and 4 against the Mountaineers. So that's not ideal. It's what happened. I thought that was a winnable match. I knew it was going to be close. I would have expected UB to win that one. against Pitt the next day, it was a little more lopsided. The Bulls got only a win at third doubles, which obviously you got to win 2 out of 3, so that didn't materialize any team points. And then only got a win at 5 singles from Mercedes Losada Rubio. And that was after the match had been well decided. So that was with the fancy third set tiebreaker. That's not a complete third set. It's hard to explain because the rules change every 6 months, John, in college tennis. So who really knows what they're trying to get at? Even Brian Wolf says that the rules change too quickly for him to pay attention to. So hooray! So tennis, mixed bag on the weekend. The women, I think, definitely we could have pegged these as their 2 hardest matches until MAC play. They also grab Youngstown State next Friday, and they'll also have Binghamton on Saturday. Binghamton is not in the MAC in women's tennis because at least one side of the conference has their crap together and keeps them out. Further down the line, lots of exciting matches, top competition for the women. We'll really see what they get. With some more Big Ten or some Big Ten competition, Minnesota and Iowa State. They'll go to Puerto Rico over spring break for Navy and NJIT. We'll talk about that when the time comes. Really looking for a bounce back weekend from the women that side than it is for the men from a national perspective. But we'll see what comes of that. I think there's definitely a win there in Youngstown State and hopefully Binghamton. I don't know too much about Binghamton's women's side. Looking forward to that. That is, I started at the top of the show, the lighter weekend. We did have guys and girls competing in track at Cornell and Akron this past weekend. I wouldn't say that with 1 week before the MAC championships, anyone that we really desperately want to highlight competed. There were some nice showings from Tyra Forbes and Kayshawn Cathy in the jumps. That was probably the only area where we had our top of the line people going. That said, to wrap up the show, we'll talk track and field, which the MAC Indoor Track and Field Championships are this coming weekend, both men and women. And then women's swimming and diving. Swimming and diving has been off for basically the entire month. This is planned. It's how it always goes for championships. But the women's swimming and diving MAC championship is this coming week. That actually starts Wednesday or Tuesday. It's like 3 or 4 or 5 days of events spaced out, which is a lot of fun. And if it's anything like last year, UB will dominate the freestyle events, which we'll talk about when we get there. But first, we'll start with track. We've got not necessarily the heat sheets up, but just kind of the rankings of everyone this year. John, a big thing with track and field is that other programs in the MAC, Eastern and Central Michigan, Akron and Kent State in particular, just have a lot bigger rosters, have more money going into those sports. You'll find with UB that we have folks who can qualify for the finals, for the top 8, earn points for UB in every event for the most part, but we don't necessarily have the depth, to go through. And last year we didn't run Mike Morgan in the decathlon or the heptathlon in the MAC championships to save him for nationals. This year, we don't really even know what's going on with Mike Morgan. We haven't seen him yet this season. We'll have to shoot a line into UB and see if he's redshirting. That said, definitely some folks who are going to win, who are near the top of their events. Who kind of stands out for you if we wanted to take, 6 minutes to preview, knowing that we'll preview it more in depth over the course of the week? Who's your 2 people to keep an eye out on? 3 people if you want.
It's tough to pick. There's so many good names to pick. I think the one at the top of my list is Darian Johnson, especially in the 60 meter. In the 60 meter where he actually has the leading time in the MAC by
a good margin.
a fairly good margin.
Yeah.
And
well,
like you
400ths
said,
of a second, but in the 60 meter, that's a good margin.
That's a good.
I don't think it'll be that. I don't think he'll win by 400ths of a second. I don't think whoever the winner is will have won by 400ths of a second. So.
Mm-hmm. But like you said, that UB doesn't have a lot of depth, so they'll have to count on people winning their events. Yeah. And to me, Johnson is probably a good bet too. You'll probably see him at minimum in the top 3.
That's exactly what I was thinking. I think Wayne Gordon is a real danger from Kent State. And I don't know, Kent State just has so many sprinters. But I think it's Wayne Gordon or Darian Johnson most likely, but I could see him slipping to 3.
And sticking with the same event, just flipping over to the women's side. Malaya White had the second fastest time in the MAC. She's another one that hopefully is up there in the top 3 once the MAC championships roll around.
Yeah.
So those are the 2 that I'm looking to keep an eye. Keep an eye on the sprinting events, which you and I have spoken quite a bit about, especially on the women's side, how and a team that's lacking a lot of depth, that the sprinting events on the women's side have shown that they have more than enough competitors there that anyone at any given time could win or be in a position to get points for UB.
Yeah, and that's a big thing. Is UB sprinting depth really competitive on a MAC level? Not necessarily, but it is much stronger than we've seen from UB the last couple of years. And so, just very quickly before I jump into my 2 or 3 names, in addition to those 2, you can never count out Kamaria Long, who has spent more time at the 400 than kind of her real signature event of the 200 this year. But she's a threat to win the 200 in the MAC championships. Right now she's seeded 9th. That's preposterous. That's what her time is. But she'll be a lot faster than that. Malaya White will also be a threat in the 200. On the men's side, Josh Galley and Mitch Moore probably aren't championship contenders in the 400, but I think they'll earn points for UB. Long in the 400 as well. And really what I want to talk about is these distance events. If you know anything about men's track and field in particular, you know that Tyler Sheving and Brian Crimmins have a years-long trade-off rivalry in the 800, the 1,000, and the mile. They're 2 of the fastest UB's ever had in those events. Neither of them is going to win the 800 in the MAC championships because Akron has Clayton Murphy, gold medalist at the Pan American Games this past summer. He's a full 2.5 seconds faster than everyone else in the conference. But both of them are close to 2 seconds faster than anyone else in the conference. And so I could really see UB racking up a lot of points in the 800. Tyler Shevin and Brian Crimmins, always solid, bets to do things. I also want to highlight, if we're talking the 800, really come on this year. I think last year we saw on the women's side Amy Shaw have a very strong track season and turn it into a strong cross-country season. I think Meehan is really the name to look out for next year. He's really established himself as UB's 3rd guy in the 800. Has dropped all the way down to a 152, which usually in swimming and track and field I try not to just throw numbers around because unless you look at them constantly, it doesn't mean a lot. But Meehan has really come on this year. He's actually right now seeded 7th in the MAC, and UB might actually take the most points from the 800. It kind of depends on if someone, how Akron and Eastern Michigan shake out. But I could see UB taking the most points for the 800, which is nice. On the mile side, even though Crimmins holds the UB record, has lowered it a couple times this year at 4:07, he's going to be in a knot of people kind of from 2nd to 7th, 2nd to 8th, who are all very neck and neck. And Clayton Murphy, again, from Akron, he's like 10 seconds faster. The rest of is a good time for the mile. He'll also win the mile. I think we should not go too far without talking about our throwers. The field events are a little bit of a thinner go this year, but Devon Patterson, we've been corrected, it's Devon. We'll get that right from now on. Devon Patterson and Ryan Cribben are UB's remaining throwers from last year's group that collectively had, across the 2 MAC championships, they had 5 top 5 finishes in the indoor and outdoor MAC championships last year. Right now, Patterson is the top-seeded thrower in the MAC by a while. I think he's the only one who's cleared 19 meters, outthrown 19 meters, whatever. Why is he? Yep, he's the only one who's cleared 19. 40 and Ryan Cribbins at 18:20, and those are the only three above 18. So I'd be pretty surprised if those two didn't both finish in the top three. Patterson looks like the odds-on favorite. He and Cribbins actually finished in front of him a little more this season, but Patterson had that 19-meter throw recently. And so if you didn't already know those names, which you should have, those are the guys to pay attention to. Oh, that's exciting. Well, this is not exciting. I've got confirmation that Mike Morgan is redshirting the indoor season. I might take a look at who in the heptathlon is seniors this year. It would be interesting to see if he's got a better shot at national championship next year. Moving on to our other championships, women's swimming and diving. Swimming and diving is two separate for the men's and the women's sides over the course of 2 weeks. This week it's the women, John. The exciting thing that I just reacted to was news that it'll be streamed on ESPN3, which is so much better than refreshing a Courier New live stats, live results, page, and just refreshing until you see Megan Burns at the top of a list, and then doing it over and over again until you see Jess Powers at the top of a list. Do the same thing. I just dropped probably the two names that we most need to know. Feel free to talk about one of them or someone else, John, and like I said, we'll be talking more about these folks in a post or two or three over the week. But we got 5 minutes. We both want to go to bed. Who are we really looking for from women's swimming and diving?
If there's a name, if you are a casual swimming and diving fan and don't know too much about the roster or anyone else and haven't been paying attention, I would say that the one name you absolutely positively should know is Megan Burns. You and I, when we did the inaugural Bull Run Awards last year, she was our overall Rookie of the Year.
Yeah.
She won 2 individual MAC championships last season in the 50 freestyle and the 100 freestyle, and she's going to do it again this year. There's no real...
Well, there's Hannah Raspopovich. She scares me. Okay, there's nobody. We don't care.
Nobody.
There's nobody.
Funny bad you don't care. Burns has been consistent and consistently good since she stepped on campus, and she's in a team that will need all the points they can get. Getting those individual titles from her is going to be really important. And another name, because I'll let you talk about Jess Powers.
Okay.
One of the freshmen that has made an impact early, Julia Box. And I believe she competes in one of the relays.
Yeah, she's all over the place.
She's all over.
A lot of the freshmen are very, very versatile, and I'll talk about that. Mm-hmm. But I think Box is our backstroker on the medley relay. I think I should know that off the top of my head, but I don't, unfortunately. Julia Box. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, she's another one to keep an eye out for. In the 200 butterfly, she has the 3rd ranked time in the MAC, which she put down all the way back in November, which is only about a second off the top ranked time, which the 2 people in front of her are seniors, and she's a freshman. She's the only freshman in the top 10 in the MAC. in the 200 butterfly.
Yeah, also look out for her in the 100 backstroke. She's just on the edge of kind of scoring points right now, but I think she could take a big jump forward there. The thing is, in the butterfly, again with Akron, Aaron Seiler is going to win the 100 and the 200 butterfly. There's really little doubt in my mind on that. But Box could finish second in the 200 butterfly, and that's a lot of points. Those are two good names, John. I feel like the list that we're looking at is somewhat incomplete, but it's not. It's all the events. Really big thing this year, you bring up Jess Powers. She hasn't been the dominant meet in and meet out force that she was last year, or that she and Brittany Curris were the year before. And I think part of that is, I mean, I've kind of complained about this. It's a nice problem to have. UB has ripped through everyone. Last year they had dual meets against some of the tougher teams in the conference. They kind of ran their, what I would expect to be kind of their primary lineup out against everyone. This year they really haven't been challenged, the women in particular, in a dual meet until the meet against Cleveland State. I didn't think we saw everyone in their primary events all year. And part of that is, as I talk about freshmen having a lot of versatility. If you look at the 1,000 free right now, one, it's surprising that Jess Powers and Hannah Miller aren't at the top of the list in the MAC, because there's no doubt in my mind they're the two fastest in the MAC. But Carrie Giovanniello is a freshman who swam, I think she swam every freestyle distance this year, and she's, I think won events in 3 or 4 of them. She's someone to keep an eye out. In addition to Burns, UB has some real sprinting power, and Sarah Baxter, who is top 6 in the 100 free. If you remember from last year, UB swept all but one of the freestyle events. I shouldn't say swept. They won all but one of the freestyle events, on which they came in second to Akron by like 0.2 of a second or something like that. And we talked about the need for the Bulls to have more depth in the other events, in the other disciplines. That maybe hasn't come along, but we're really seeing with box. Mallory Buha hasn't come in and broke the school record instantly like we promised she would, so that's a fail on our part. Just maybe I shouldn't have brought that up, but it's true. But box, Giovanniello, and a couple different things have stepped in, and UB's got a little bit more going on in these other disciplines. If you look at the top 20 rankings so far this year, UB's still not really cracking much into these rankings, but what they need to do is they need to find a way to score points in all of these events somehow. It would be great. A real goal is to score in the finals of all of these events, get at least somebody. But it's also hard to tell because I really don't think we saw people in their main events for much of the season. I'd say look for Burns, look for UB to win more than 3/4 of the freestyle events. I think Burns is good in the 50 and the 100. I think Baxter or Burns, perhaps both, could go in the 200. Powers could come down to the 200 and win that, to be honest. I can't remember which of only 2 of the 500, the 1,000 and the 1650 are actually contested here. I'd expect Powers to win both of those. I can only assume that she's not hurt or anything this year and that she's just been not tested. She's the best there is right now in the MAC and distance swimming. I could see relay the 200 meter free relay with Burns, Baxter, Maddie Jakumski, who is someone I should have mentioned in terms of versatile freshman. Burns, Baxter, Jakumski, could be Box, could be someone else. I don't remember who. I should have looked this up. This will be all Eve Costin. It'll be Costin. This will be all in the preview this Wednesday. I think the 800 free relay is probably like last year, the one where maybe Akron out touches the Bulls. Maybe not. I don't know. But look for UB to rack up points in the freestyle again, and hopefully, what I'm looking for is a stronger showing in the other disciplines. I don't know. I don't think a MAC championship is in the cards, but I'd like to see UB closer to number one by point spread, and I'd like to see UB get more points from the other disciplines. That's something we'll be looking out for. The other thing we'll be looking out for is how these freshmen that I'm talking about do. Box, Jakumski, Giovanniello. These are folks that are going to have to step up and be versatile with Jess Powers going away, especially in those longer freestyle events. I think Brittany Walters is also a senior, so there's an opening in the individual medleys, which UB hasn't really filled this year as good as Walters is from Spencer Rodriguez last year. That might be a reason that even if they do get better in the other disciplines, that things might drop off, because Rodriguez was up there with Miller and Powers in all the distance events as well. That's the thing with women's. This is totally an aside, John, but you take the talent we've had over the last couple of years, Curris, Rodriguez, Powers, Burns, and now, coming in Box, Jakumski, Giovanniello. Who else did we graduate that was real strong? Even so, we never got a year with Curris, Burns, Powers, and Rodriguez all on the team at the same time. And then if you extend it by one more year with Baxter, who is, if not for Megan Burns, we'd be talking about Sarah Baxter as a possibility to win 3 individual titles at the MAC championships. She's not quite as fast as Megan Burns, but she could do it. It was just off by so close. If we could have put all of those on the team at once, we would have won the MAC championship in that hypothetical year. And that's okay. That's not a bad problem to have compared to what we started the show off with baseball, who hasn't been able to continue the momentum and keep getting, day in and day out contributors who can really bring something home on a MAC level. But it's just kind of a darn. Should be exciting. I fully expect to have the same kind of excitement that we did last year when freestyle results just come in and it's UB at the top over and over again. And hopefully we'll get some real solid performances in the other disciplines too. Also diving, I regret to say that I don't know how to talk about diving, and they don't actually have. That makes me even more incapable. Last year, diving was a weak point for both UB teams in the MAC championships. It's where the women in particular went from neck and neck for first to dropping off, and then they dropped off further with the depth issues. The men actually did okay in diving, but I felt that the women in particular gave up a lot of points because EMU, Akron, and Toledo just scored all sorts of points in diving last year. And so we'll see if they're able to do more this year. That would be a nice surprise. I don't have numbers in front of me, and I wouldn't know how to say anything other than to point at the numbers anyway. But that also happens. So that's that. That's everything we've got. We actually came closer to an hour than I thought we would. John and I have working speakers and sound. Got up at 10 today instead of 10:18. That's a win. Next week we'll be busy. We might have to just plan for like a 75-minute show, which for our loyal viewers, hooray. For folks who watch us on Monday morning at work or listen on the drive into work, next week will be a good one. You'll get a little more material. We will have women's swimming and diving championship recap, indoor track and field men's and women's recap. Softball has 4 games in Virginia. We'll have that recap. Tennis has Youngstown State for both teams, Binghamton for the women. We'll have them. Baseball, we'll have some games. That's it. Right?
And we'll preview the MAC championships for wrestling.
And we'll preview the MAC championships for wrestling and the men's swimming and diving MAC championship. So that'll be a fun weekend. Oh, and it won't be on Sunday because I'll be on an Amtrak train. Sorry, John. So it won't be on Sunday.
Okay.
And John's schedule, maybe it won't be on Monday either.
We'll figure it out.
We'll let you know. We'll let you know. For John McWhinney, I'm Matt Gritzmacher. We are from UB Bull Run. We talk all of UB sports, every competition. We don't miss any of them. Part of that is on Sunday nights we do this Olympic sports podcast, talking everything but football and basketball, making sure that everyone gets their due. Only team left that has yet to start is rowing, where it doesn't feel like it, but we're close to the end of the year. It doesn't feel like it because we'll be going through to hopefully the track and field nationals in early June like we did last year. But we're really kind of in the home stretch now with teams. We're winding down the winter sports and cranking up the spring sports, which are not as busy as the fall, which is nice. For John, I'm Matt. We'll catch you next week at a time to be determined. Have a good one.